It's time to focus on seniors with Helping Seniors TV. The television show designed to make you aware of senior issues and needs, as well as to acquaint you with the resources available to help you age in place and with dignity. Now, here's your host, Joe Steckler.
I'm Joe Steckler, and welcome to Helping Seniors, the television arm of Helping Seniors of Brevard County. Our show is designed to provide you with information on how to develop your own aging and care plans. Our topic today is, what is a financial advisor? Joining me is Beth Courtney, financial advisor with the Courtney Braswell team of Valach Financial Advisors. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Joe.
I've done one radio show and one TV show with you. You happen to be on our board of directors. I'm looking forward to doing the show because I find of all potential panelists, one of the most difficult parts of the community to get to work with are financial advisors. For some reason, you're constricted by so many rules.
That is true.
That you can say things, you can't say things, so I'm going to do everything I can to say the right thing so I can keep you on so you can help our viewers understand what is a financial advisor. What do you do?
Great question. I think there are a lot of misconceptions actually about what a financial advisor is, but by my definition, it is someone who helps provide financial peace to individuals, someone who takes people who maybe have a little bit of money or maybe have a lot of money and help them find order out of the chaos and actually to make a plan so they can retire if that's what they choose, travel, live life in a grander way now or a grander way later, just to really help them understand their own finances, kind of how money works and how you can leverage it to have the best possible outcome when you're done.
Years ago, Beth, my mother and father went to a financial advisor, and they were in their late 70s. And my mother later told me, we came out of it, my dad was in shell shock. He didn't realize what they had put together.
I see that all the time.
My mother and father were not wealthy people. They were sufficiently able to take care of themselves and help other members of the family. But Dad just didn't understand finances. He really didn't. My father was an electrician, and he ended up running a furniture repair business. So I come from a varied background, but I've seen so many different aspects of life, but that never caused me to not appreciate the value of certain types of professions. And I think one of the most misunderstood is a financial advisor. And the reason I say that is because so many people think that you have to have a plethora of wealth in order to go to a financial advisor. Why is that a myth?
I'm not sure where that took root at the beginning, but it definitely is a misunderstanding. I frequently have people say, wait a second, you mean I have enough money to come to you? And if you have $50, you have enough money, because it's all about planning. It's not about where you are now, it's about where you want to land and how do we help you get there. But I think there is this common misconception that unless you're, quote, wealthy, you don't qualify to work with a financial advisor. And that's just simply not true.
Ideally, you want to start the financial planning process very early in life.
Very young.
But what if you don't? In my own case, I took my first mutual funds out when I was 44 years old. I didn't start until then. But I diligently followed my mutual fund plan from 41 on. And then when I fully retired, I'm retired. I'm retired from getting paid.
Right,
I do this free gratis because I like doing what I can to put people like Beth and other panelists I have before you so they can help you understand what you should be doing. And that's important to me. But having said that, I realized that if I did what I did between 44 and 65, or 44 and 70, I had a good estate such that the interest invested correctly, it gives me all I need to live along with my retirement. I'm retired Navy, so I have a lot of advantages other people don't have, and I understand that. But I still had to plan to get there.
Absolutely. And you're talking about the power of compounding. Starting early enough, leaving your money invested long enough, doing it correctly, and just watching the factor of how compounding works, and it's why you landed where you landed. But it's also because you started. So your question earlier about age and when you start. Ideally, everybody could start the minute they have a job from the get-go and train themselves to pay themselves first. So maybe you're 16, 17 years old, you start that pattern and you're a millionaire far earlier. But even starting later, the key is starting. I think what we find is people lose hope or just feel like, well, gosh, I never got started. I'm 50 years old now, and it's really just too late for me, and I'll just work forever. You know, I'll never retire.
I understand what you're saying, but let's take a look at a cross-section of our United States people. We have people that will work their entire lives and never make more than $25,000 or $30,000. Is it really possible for them to have an estate when they get older?
It absolutely is. And it comes back to how early do you start? Because just a small amount of money every year, in that scenario, 10%, $2,000 a year, compounded over 30, 35, 40 years, is in the millions, if invested properly.
I know that, Beth. But how do you get people, if a person is that $25,000 person that comes to you as a financial advisor and you say, if you do this, how do you convince them that that $500 or $1,000 a year to start out with is going to come from them taking a small vacation or eating out once a week when they should eat out once a month? How do you do that? Is that where your Dave Ramsey training comes in?
Dave Ramsey training absolutely helps. Dave Ramsey training helps tremendously, having facilitated it for 6 or 7 years. It helps with the budgeting and what not to do. In other words, not to get in debt. To watch your spending, to actually monitor where you're spending. I had one gal, I'll never forget her. We did our first exercise, our budgeting exercise, and she called me midweek between classes and said, oh my gosh, I just found out that I spend $900 a month eating out.
$900 a month?
Yes.
Eating out?
She was just shocked. But I will tell you that by the end of our course, she was a new person. Just having that perspective, because what happens is when you don't have a plan and you aren't tracking, you have no idea what you're spending. And when you suddenly have an awareness about what you're spending, and you've been taught the value of saving and investing, and you recognize that you can either, swipe that card and give the money to Burger King, or you can give the money to the Bank of You. Once you figure out that concept, it changes how you behave. And someone making $25,000 a year, as crazy as it sounds, absolutely could reserve enough to
but this girl that was spending $900 a month on eating out, what was her average salary?
Oh, she was in a profession that got her anywhere from $35,000 to $50,000 a year.
And she was still spending that much eating
because
out?
she wasn't paying attention to what she was doing. She was living this really busy, fast-paced lifestyle with her career, and she was just swiping her card, easier to eat out.
Did she have a lot of credit card debt?
She did, and now she doesn't. So she has done a brilliant turnaround. She's 360
We're
degrees.
talking something. Viewers, I'm going to ask Beth just to take a couple of minutes and explain. Many of you might know who Dave Ramsey is, a financial planning guy. But I'll let Beth tell you a little bit about Dave Ramsey and why it's important to the life of a financial planner. Because if people follow the tenets that Dave Ramsey espouses, then you can help them be a success story. What is the Dave? Explain to him what it is.
He's a financial guru. Couple decades ago, he and his wife had to file bankruptcy, I think twice. They made all the mistakes that many of us in our generation made, learned from it, and decided not only was he never going to go back down that path, but he's also going to make sure other people don't. So he has impacted millions of lives with his teachings, and many of us have helped facilitate those classes. He still teaches, but we help facilitate that. And to help people get out of debt, stay out of debt, plan to live, but also plan to give. So the ultimate conclusion is now you're not, paying interest on credit cards. You're actually living the lifestyle you'd like to live and also giving, which is the ultimate goal.
I think, and I'm going to ask sort of a guarded question, and you may not be able to answer it. But given the fact that a person wants to spend money, they don't really have the assets to spend it, they tend to put it on a credit card, and they run themselves into debt. And I listened to Dave Ramsey several times. He always uses the example of, why would I want to take and put my steak dinner at Outback on a credit card and end up amortizing it through a debt management company over a 30-year period? Why would I want to pay for a steak dinner for 30 years? And that analogy is kind of, it's true. It is true.
Steak has to taste really good.
If we just take, from a financial standing point, if we take and spend a lot of money and in different ways and get it all consolidated in one place, you're still spending all kinds of money on that debt, even though you got it in one place.
You mean if you consolidated?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, he teaches a principle that's called a debt snowball, where you're actually not throwing it all in one bucket and trying to whittle it down over 10, 20, 30 years. You're taking one bite of the apple at a time, and we can go into detail at a different time maybe, but you're basically taking a chunk, getting the satisfaction of paying it off, then going to the next one and taking what you used to spend on the first one or pay toward the first one and add it to the second one. So it's a very methodical plan that gives you small victories along the way so you actually get out of debt. And then the money that you were putting on those credit cards, now you can put in savings to build your emergency fund or start investing.
Financial planning and a financial advisor is not just managing a stack of bills.
Right, no.
It's managing your ability to increase the stack of bills without wasting it on the side.
Exactly. We do almost all of our clients, at the beginning of almost all of our relationships, we start with a budget, because it's very hard for us to put together a comprehensive plan that says, this is what you're likely going to be spending, in today's dollars on your retirement. It's very hard to anticipate that if they don't really have a handle on what they're spending today while they're not in retirement. So we do help them prepare a budget, and it's so eye-opening, and so often people will say, wow, if I make $5,000 a month, there's technically supposed to be $1,000 left. Where did that go? Well, I don't know. I didn't have a plan. So I just used it all up, and now I'm going to get my next $5,000, and I'm going to do the things I have to do, and then there's going to be something left, and I'm going to go out to eat. So it's a matter of making that plan.
But as a financial planner, don't you find individual discipline the most prolific obstacle in the way of doing good financial planning?
Absolutely. Old habits die hard. We're speaking for my own generation, we're the plastic generation. We always, our very first purchases were, hey, 90 days, same as cash, or buy now, pay later. And that was a mindset we got into. So we developed habits over a long time that didn't include what our parents or our grandparents did, which is depriving ourselves of things today so that later we could live the life that we want to live. So it's very much a mindset shift. But once they finally see something on paper, it's so eye-opening. And I find very often that people are ready to make that change because they've been carrying around this baggage for years. Fear, concern. Oh, if I don't think about it, if I don't look at it, it's not there. And yet they're carrying it with them. So getting it down on paper, almost always, the reaction is so joyous for us to have people say, oh my gosh, now I know what I've been doing, now I know what I can do differently, and I can actually retire.
Okay.
I'm very excited.
If I came to you for financial advice, and I went in and I said, Beth, here's what my assets are, what can I do better? Or is that what you do? Do you show people how do you show people they can do better?
Absolutely.
What do you do?
Great question. So we'll usually have them bring everything that they have, statements, what have you, and sometimes it comes in a big box of just a bunch of junk paper. And we sift through it all and make a nice clean list of everything that they have. Maybe they don't have that much, but they might have 3 401ks over here, and they might just have a mishmash. So we help them, again, bring order out of chaos and make a nice list of what they have. Then we look at and analyze each of the accounts that they have and say, given what their goals are, how soon they want to retire, what their risk tolerance is, what they're comfortable with, are they appropriately positioned to accomplish those goals? And so we do a complementary financial plan where we literally plug in everything that they have now. We discuss how long do they think before they're going to retire? What is that number that they absolutely have to have? Food, clothing, shelter, transportation. What would they like to have? Travel, that kind of thing. So we kind of find that target number using today's dollars about what we think and what they think that they want. And then we kind of put everything together and make a plan that says, if you do this, this, and this, this is the expected outcome. We have to let history be our guide a little bit. How did these funds perform in the past? That kind of thing. But mostly it's just mapping out a strategy that can actually help them believe and know that they actually could retire.
How do you monitor what they're doing? Or do you monitor what they're doing? If you do monitor, how often do you check these things?
We do. We have, my particular team, we actually have different roles in our little team. And so we have an analyst, my business partner does kind of the analytics. So we watch fairly regularly depending on what type of an account that they have. And then we meet with them at whatever interval they're comfortable. But at the minimum, people should be having at least an annual review, which is when you sit down and say, A, are my investments performing as we expected? B, do I still have the same risk tolerance I had, or am I now a year from retirement or 2 years from retirement and need to dial back the risk? There's a lot of conversations that need to happen. Beneficiary review. Is my son still the person who I want to receive my 401k proceeds if I would move to heaven? So a lot of those discussions happen on at least an annual basis.
Do you put a portfolio together
We do.
and put whether common stocks, long-term equity stocks, bonds? You do all that?
We do. Yeah, it could be anything from stocks, bonds, a lot of mutual funds, annuities, kind of. We're very holistic practitioners, so we really look at their whole picture, even life insurance, long-term care, and what are all the pieces? You've got this pie, and what are all the slices, and how much should be at what risk tolerance? And
What do you find today with? First of all, I would recommend that you probably have a strong preference for mutual funds, diversified mutual funds, correct?
yes, can't talk too much product specific, but yes.
Pardon?
I can't be very product specific, but yes.
Oh, I know.
Yes,
No,
but that is
we're not gonna do
a
that.
significant part of where people are invested.
But it is. It's important. It's important. Diversification is extremely
Everything.
important because with the fluidity of the market today, the ups and downs,
Look at this week.
you have to be balanced. If you're not balanced, of course, if you're one of the rare individuals that has money you want to throw in and try to ride the market out, if you don't mind if you lose the money,
Right.
you could be aggressive.
Sure.
But as you hit the 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 year point, you don't want to be aggressive, I don't think.
Risk tolerance is a critical conversation. If you have 20 years, you can be out there and be moderately aggressive if your stomach can suit, if that suits you. But the closer you get to retirement, you wouldn't want to be 2 years before a 2008, 2 years before retirement, and 2008 happens. You're not retiring when you were going to if that happens, if you stayed out there on the risk curve. So that careful planning and that frequency of planning helps make sure that you put yourself in a more protected position the closer you get to retirement.
What do you find now with seniors? When I talk seniors, I'm talking people 55 plus, with the way the stock market is going, and actually it's been pretty good the last several years. I think it is.
If you step back and take a 30,000-foot view, yes. If you're in it,
Yeah, well,
but you're right, it's been great.
A lot of people think, I have talked to so many people, if you look at the stock market overall, well, you can't do that.
Right.
You can't.
No.
Because if you do, you need to get out of it because your stress levels
Correct.
are not going to be able to cope with that. I think the dumbest thing I could have done, and the smartest thing I did, was to have somebody else manage all this years ago, because I didn't have to have this stress. I got a little anxious, and I really got anxious in 1987.
Oh gosh, yes.
It was the year before I retired in the
Oh
Navy,
no.
and I got
boy.
I had an inheritance of $50,000, and I had two ladies that lived close to where I had commanded the naval home. One I used to like to talk about my Jewish friend, and she was the financial person. She says, "Joe, you need to invest that." I invested that money, and 2 days later there was a stock crash. It took a long time to recover that.
It does.
But
It does.
that's what happens. It does happen. But you have to have faith that our country is going to be what it is. And if you follow what you're talking about, you will end up, I think, 99 times out of 100 with assets that can make sure you are able to do what you want to do.
That's
And I know that you're the Courtney Braswell team of Valach, but what is Valach itself? Maybe our viewers need to understand the total concept within the guidelines with which you work.
Thank you. Okay, yes, so that's the company that we work for, and it is a company that's been around for, I think, 60-ish years. They actually invented the 403B plan, which is the nonprofit version of a 401k. So they've been in the school system and the healthcare system for 50 years, really helping employees who don't make a lot of money figure out how to retire. So putting it through payroll deduction has really helped people.
And
I
you
have
can do
teachers that are making, $30, $40, $50,000 a year after 30 years maybe, and they actually have very nice nest eggs built up because they started back then. And so Valach has that kind of core, and then they also have a VFA, which is our broker-dealer, which would be like, an Edward Jones or a Merrill Lynch or that kind of thing, where we
Okay.
can offer the mutual funds.
Okay. What are some of the tips that you could give our viewers that are seniors about what to do and what not to do without, pinning yourself down?
Oh yeah, so we won't be product specific, but we'll actually be conceptual, which is more than anything, don't be afraid to talk about money. So many people just don't want to deal with it. And really just come in and have a conversation. Preferably if you're married, bring your spouse, but if you just need the one who's willing to talk about it to start, open that dialogue and have that conversation. Communication is everything. We find that once kind of they start talking about it, we get a comfort level, and now they're realizing that A, it's important to talk about it, and B, it's important to take steps and react to it. And it's just such a joy to see people who, just came in just nervous and slumped over and I'm not comfortable with this. And then later they're so empowered because of knowledge. Knowledge is power. Just understanding what they have, what it could mean to them at retirement time, and just having those conversations. And having conversations with their family. If they're seniors,
That's important.
with their adult children is critical.
Yep. You and I did a recent show with an attorney, and we discussed the legal and financial issues and how they intermeshed. And one of the things we talked about on that show was the importance, especially in Florida, since we have so many seniors, that there are so many second marriages.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And what kind of advice would you give to seniors that are in a second marriage about how they can make what the two seniors want to have happen and not influenced by children? Because I've watched children
Me too.
directly tell their parents, you can't get married. And I told a couple that presented that to me, I said, I'd tell my kids to fly a kite. I would do exactly what I wanted to do, but you can still protect.
You can,
But I
absolutely.
think you need to protect for that second spouse too.
You absolutely do. And that's where it's critical that financial advisors and attorneys and accountants work hand in hand. So they get the legal guidance. Typically, we're going to see two trusts set up. Very commonly, I see where the clients will set up two trusts, one for the original family and one for the current
Now, I've never
family.
heard of all the legal stuff. I've never heard anybody talk about setting up a trust for the first family and a trust for the second family.
Yeah, depends on, I'm seeing like third marriage situations where people have been widowed a couple of times. I know. I have it in my own family.
I'm just talking about second marriage, not third.
But there are considerations because, again, concerns about the kids being upset that, gosh, okay, so you married somebody else and now you're going to forget about us sort of thing. So they work closely with the attorneys, and we work closely with the attorneys to make sure that the assets are titled properly. We have people who inherited stocks from husband number one, and they want to make sure that those stocks pass to their children, their birth children, and not to the new spouse's children. So they have a trust that kind of drives all that, and then we make sure that the accounts are set up in the name of the trust. So everything is spelled out. You're not dealing with probate issues. You're not dealing with questions. The saddest thing I see is when someone has moved to heaven and the spouse left behind is completely at a loss. Things aren't titled properly. They have no idea where they're going to land. They didn't have beneficiaries named. So it's that kind of planning, especially in a second or third marriage situation, is critical.
You've thrown a whole new element at me today here on this television show because, for years I have talked about second marriages and people being able to do what they should and what they should not do. But I've never had a lawyer or a financial advisor ever talk to me about setting up separate trusts, which points out that to me the need for people like our viewers to talk to people like you about just what their situation is, because I think it's terrible for families to go through agonies they don't have to go through. And it should be what the parents want to have happen and not what the children want the parents to have happen for them.
True.
And I think that's such a wrong thing to do.
Yeah. Maybe having that unbiased third party that you can talk to that understands the ins and outs of the finances and the legal aspect of it, having an attorney and a financial
Why do you
advisor.
enjoy being a financial advisor?
Oh my gosh, I love
Why?
it.
You got a few seconds.
Okay, it's clearly what I was meant to do. There is so much joy in helping people go from fearful and thinking that they're never going to be able to retire and they're going to be checking, at the front door of certain stores, to actually saying, wow, now I have a plan and I can actually retire and think about what the future could be like, which is far different than I thought before I had any idea where my money was. It's such a joy to see people find financial peace when money has always been a sore subject.
But I think the real crux of the issue is to get that person that's young to start financial planning.
Absolutely.
With that thought, Beth, I want to thank you for being here today. And I want to thank you, viewer, for watching today's episode of Helping Seniors. If you have questions or comments, please call us at 321-473-7770. For more information on senior care and resources, visit our website at helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. And be sure to listen to Helping Seniors on radio station AM 1300 WMEL every Thursday afternoon at 1 p.m. And look for our Helping Seniors newsletter and a center section of Senior Scene magazine each month, and also Hometown News